Why do organizations avoid strategic planning? Well, there's a lot of reasons. The problem is 67% of nonprofits report that their strategic plans failed. That's not a very happy statistic or encouraging statistic. So, when an organization goes into strategic planning and they see this statistic, well, who would want to take on something that you have over half of a chance of failing at? But just know there are some really good reasons why strategic plans fail. Let's look at some of them. So, some of the top reasons why strategic plans fail, the biggest one is not viewed as a living document. Months and months is involved in the strategic planning process. And so you can't just take that document and file it away, high five everyone and then don't look at it again because the landscape is always changing. Um, Things happen, opportunities come about. Uh, we just went through, or we are still going through a pandemic. And so look at all of the organizations that had to do a pivot. So, as an organization, you have to be able to pivot. Lack of focus. Going back to, if you don't have some key strategic focus areas, then you are going to get excited and take on every shiny opportunity that comes your way. And even though they're wonderful, they're great, but the reason why you create a strategic plan is because you have a goal in mind. You want to raise $50,000, $100,000, and you have determined in order for us to raise $100,000, we need to do these five things. But if you keep participating in every shiny new opportunity that comes about, the time to reach that $100,000 goal is going to take longer and longer and longer and longer. So there's a lack of focus, lack of understanding of the strategic planning process. There are many, many layers. Gosh, I would feel like there's probably over 20 different steps to strategic planning. But many organizations, they just identify their goals and attach some dates to them, and that's it. But that doesn't work. And that's why it's one of the top reasons for why strategic plans fail. So, a lack of resources. And so that's a big one. In order to get the items identified on the strategic plan, they're going to take resources. And so you have to identify those resources. What are they? Do you need more staff? Do you need more volunteers? What type of budget are we looking at? And so if you don't identify those things up front, then as they come, they're in their turn, as part of your plan, you're going to find yourself having to pause your plan if you're not prepared, if you're not prepared financially or with your staff, with your head count. Lack of ownership of the plan. So there's no cheerleader for the strategic plan, no accountability team. And so you put the plan together, but who is making sure that these objectives are being met? Or that if they're not being met, what's necessary to help them to be met? What are the resources that the organization is lacking? What can we do? Is this the time to pivot and maybe think of something else? So there's no ownership of the plan. Many times strategic plans fail is it's not aligned to the mission. And so because it's not aligned to the mission, you're kind of all over the place. Poorly defined goals. So you're thinking of some things to do, but they're not really defined. They're just kind of ambiguous. They're not really defined. They're not SMART goals. They're not specific and measurable, achievable, relevant, and with a timestamp in a timely manner. Lack of accountability. That goes kind of back up to lack of ownership. But the accountability is who is responsible. So you identify the task, but it really wasn't identified. Well, what department is handling this task, or what individuals are handling this task? Lack of candid, unfiltered conversations. So this is a big one because many small nonprofits fall into this category, especially if their founder is heavy-handed and the organization wearing many hats. Many people within the organization do not want to address the elephant in the room, and that is, unfortunately, the executive director or the founder just simply don't have the skill set. It's what's called skilled and competent. They're skilled, but just not in the area to help the nonprofit grow. And you may find in this, when this happens, that the nonprofit is just stagnant and that there's not really growth. There's things that's happening, but there's not growth. No standardization in processes, inadequate skill sets, and the failure to pivot. These are all the reasons why strategic plans fail. So, yeah, that 67% look pretty bleak. But when you look at these reasons, then you can understand why. If these things aren't being addressed, then there you go, you're 67%.